On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1956. We're going to be taking a look at Elvis Presley, and he's going to be performing Hound Dog. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So I've got the guitar out in readiness because we are going to be breaking down what Scotty Moore is playing in this performance, as well as just taking it in, and we'll watch it all the way through in one sitting because it's only 3 minutes and 37 seconds in length. I might cut off the end because Elvis does talk at the end as well, but as always, there's going to be a link in the description below so you guys can click on that link if you want to watch it all the way through without me stopping it at any point. So let's get them all up on screen and see how they get on. So just a quick amendment to this video. Unfortunately, it's been blocked worldwide because of the imagery in the video and not the song or the audio. So I'm going to blur out the video that I'm looking at so you guys can still hear it, and you'll just have to take my word for it that what I'm demonstrating is what Elvis and Scotty Moore are playing. But I'll see you guys in the comment section.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, yes, that's right, Elvis Presley. Ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention, please? I'd like to tell you that we're going to do a sad song for you. This song here is one of the saddest songs we've ever heard. It really tells a story, friends. Beautiful lyrics. It goes something like this. You ain't nothing but you ain't nothing but a hound dog. Well, you ain't never gonna run behind your head no friend. Well, that's just you know that you well, you ain't never gonna run behind your head no friend.
And there we have it. So just a quick word about Elvis and the fact that when he performs, or even before he performs, he's got the crowd in the palm of his hand because he just struts out. He's got that confidence, and it's entertaining in the way that he says, "Could I have everyone's attention, please?" Everyone's attention is already on him. He doesn't have to worry about getting people's attention. But you can hear as well in the audience, the girls are going crazy, and he's not really doing anything. But you can tell that he does drag out the beginning of the performance. Obviously, everyone wants to, especially the girls, want him to start performing, but he knows that. So he just drags it out a little bit more at the beginning. Interestingly, because he is dragging it out at the beginning, you'll hear Scotty Moore playing the chord in the background, which, from a performance perspective, is so that Elvis can come in on key, rather than just starting singing and potentially singing the wrong note, because he doesn't know where the key is. And we'll jump into the analysis, and we'll jump back to the beginning of the video so that I can point that out. I also love the way that Elvis introduces this song, and describing it as the saddest song ever, and the lyrical content being really deep. All these kind of things that show he's got not only personality but a sense of humour as well, and it just makes him even more likeable. And if there's one quality that you would want to have when you're standing in front of a lot of people, it is to have that first impression of being likeable, and Elvis definitely had that. So, we'll start the video from the beginning again, and I'll just point out a few things about Scotty playing the chord in the background.
It goes something like this.
So, straight off the bat there, when Elvis says it goes something like this, we get the chord in the background from Scotty, and this is in the key of C, but Scotty's actually playing it from the low E string, so he's putting a G in there as well, like that. And that G becomes important in a second. So now Elvis clicks his fingers. This is probably something that they have when they're rehearsing in order to have another reference point. So he's just asking for the key again. And Scotty just played the G. But the song's in C. So when you're looking to come in with a vocal, you don't want a G, you'd want the C. If anything, you'd want the third of the chord of C, which is 1, 2, 3, in order to give Elvis a bit more of a clue as to where that first note is. And as you'll know with Hound Dog, when he goes, "You ain't nothing but a," it's just kind of pinching up to that third. So that would have been a really good point, but he's been given the G, which, in the key of C, is your fifth. So again, it's not your root note or your third. So I'm sure that that note, Elvis still was thinking, hang on, give me the chord that I'm about to sing into, just the root or the third, that first note of, technically, it's going to be the minor third because it's like that, rather than the major third. But obviously, if you're playing the C, you can't play the C minor because it is a major chord underneath. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but Elvis is now not going to go into it. He's going to want another chord. And there we had it. So he was going to go into it and then he stopped. And whether he wasn't sure where to come in or where the note was in order to hit initially, or he's just elongating the performance and just building the tension, I think it's probably a little bit of both, that he wasn't quite sure, but he probably did get it from the G because he's probably sung this song many times before in rehearsals. But just the way that he is on stage, just building that tension, he's smiling, he's likable, even just delaying the beginning of the song. This time, Scotty goes, and he picks through all of the strings, reversing, descending, to make sure that every single note is really nice and clear. I'll take it back so hopefully you can hear all of those notes that Scotty plays just to make sure Elvis is okay. There we go. So you heard that little rake across the strings of the, like that, and now Elvis is about to jump into it.
You ain't nothing but
I just want to point out as well that this is a live TV performance, but in terms of the sound, it's very guitar heavy in the mix, so we can hear what Scotty Moore's playing very clearly. We can't really hear the bass all that much, or the drums, or any of the backing vocals when we start getting into the performance a little bit more. So it very much looks like and sounds like there's going to be a boom mic over the top of Elvis's head, and that's what's picking up his voice. But because obviously the crowd are so loud as well, everything's getting drowned out. You know, plug in and play, and that's the sound that you get. And I'm sure that they probably planned it a little bit more in the studio, or they might have just set up that one mic, as we can see by the amp, the guitar amp, and maybe an overhead mic for the drum kit, and maybe for the bass. But it seems like the mic in front of the guitar amp is also maybe picking up the bass as well. So yeah, it's not really clear. We can hear Elvis's voice relatively clearly. Sometimes it drops out, but it does really strike you as a performance that is totally live and a little bit off the cuff, which is great, because so many times on TV shows, especially in the 60s and then the 70s, they would have a backing track playing, or they'd be miming, they wouldn't be playing live. But here we've definitely got a live performance all the way from Elvis. And another thing to mention is that Elvis here has got his acoustic guitar, and he is playing the correct shapes with his hand. This is something that I've done a video on in the past that you've probably seen if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, but I'll leave a link to that video at the end of this video so you guys can have a look at me breaking down Elvis's guitar playing. So not that we can hear it really clearly, but just to show you what Elvis is playing here, he's got his C shape in position. Obviously he's doing the showmanship thing as well and entertaining and not playing all the time, but he has his chord shapes in there. So he's got the C, and then he moves over to that F, C, G, F, C, like that. And that's it. So he's got those chord positions in there. He definitely knows the chords to this song. And if his guitar was plugged in, then you would hear, and it might be plugged in here, it might just be the mix that is off. So getting into what Scotty's playing, we've got this little slide that he's playing on the low E string, A string, and D string. And it's effectively your E shape. If you were to play an E with your second finger, third finger, and little finger like this, move it all towards you by one string, and you get that sound, and then slide it up one fret like that. That's what Scotty's doing here. And once he then slides up, he places in the first finger to give the rest of that C. So we've got that. That kind of vibe. You can definitely hear that slide going on in there. And sometimes he breaks away from strumming all of the chord. For example, we've got the F, and then he might just play those top strings with that seventh in there with a little finger, back into the slides that we had, into the G, and again throwing in that seventh with that little finger, F, and this is something that he throws in quite a lot. That seventh, and then down to the bar with that first finger on that B string, and at that point there'd just be one strum and a stop on the C, because that's where we have the little instrumental break. At that point we then get back into the slide, into the chords that I've just shown you, and you can hear when I'm playing going, I'm kind of putting in more percussion on the right hand. So going, I'll slow it down a bit, and kind of catching the strings to effectively get things moving along a little bit more from a rhythm perspective. There isn't a lot of that going on in this performance because obviously the whole band's there, so Scotty doesn't have to worry too much about it. But if you do want to throw that in to get it just to motor on a little bit more, seventh. And interestingly there, when I made that shift over, you'll see Scotty change into that bar chord position, and then come back into, for the slide, have his thumb over the top, G, seventh, like that, and just one on the C there for the turnaround. So let's just jump into the solo and see what Scotty's doing in the background with his lead section. So when we start this lead section, you can hear right at the top end the Scotty's tone is really biting through the mix, which is great because we can hear it really clearly. But as soon as we start, we've got this little run that happens, and don't worry about the buzzing on my guitar. It's my strings that are very, very old. They definitely need a change. But with this run that we get, it's all alternate picked. So we've got this, that kind of vibe to it. And you could hear a bit of palm mute on this. So there's tons of technique just in doing this and getting those notes to pop out cleanly, and they're all picked. So this is the thing about playing on a really clean tone. You can't rely as much on hammer-ons and pull-offs. You have to pick all of the notes so that they stick out and the audience can hear them, and you need top technique in order to do that. So Scotty definitely has that. And when he plays through that, he does the same phrase twice. So I'll do that again. So he doesn't wait for the next beat in the bar, he just puts it straight in so that you get a really cool syncopated sound to it in terms of not landing now on the beat but being between the beats. So it just makes it interesting hearing that second run, which is the same as he's just played, just timed slightly differently. So let's just jump into it to listen to that first part again and then hear where he goes from there. Okay, so we've got this little run up where, or it might be into, and he ends on a little bit of blues scale there. And if you want to know where we are, if you have your pentatonic shape 1, your minor pentatonic shape 1 in C, which will be here, that's pretty much where you want to be. I'm just going to have another little listen to this run. Okay, so when we have a little run up into our, we've got that little run. It's really cool the way that he's phrased that. Like that. So this is where, you know, the phrasing is what will make or break these kind of lines. Because if you play through it straight and you go, then you'll finish it too quickly. You need that little rest on the blues scale note that's in there. So when we have this, that little rest then makes it all fit into place. And we have this, and it sounds like we've got a little hammer-on and pull-off section in there on that D string. Yeah. Like that. So slowing that down, pull off, hammer on, pull off, hammer on. And it happens really quickly, so you might not notice it too much, but it's definitely in there. Okay, and then we've got a similar that kind of thing. And then it's the end of the solo. So again, we're spending all of our time really in that minor pentatonic shape 1, throwing in a little bit of your major scale there with that minor pentatonic in order to, and that blues scale. And same. That kind of thing. So when we are breaking that down, I mean, all of the playing that you'll hear from Scotty, and this is always the case with Elvis's performances and his records, that the lead guitar was always exactly what the song needed and didn't take the limelight away from anything else. It really sat in there. It complemented the song. And that is the most important thing to achieve when you're having a solo section with any instrument. It has to complement the overall song. It's not just a time to show off in the middle of a song and just be totally irrelevant to the rest of it. And that is something that was just performed to perfection when you're talking about Elvis's songs, and a guy like Scotty Moore being able to play this kind of solo, just great blues lines that just sit in there perfectly. But also when you're talking about James Burton, another great player that played with Elvis, and I've got a video on him somewhere on the channel if you want to check that out independently as well. But these kind of players that can just produce exactly what's required for the song and aren't playing for their own ego. And this is a great example here because it's a very short solo, but it's so well put together. The way that we're starting off in, obviously C here, when Scotty starts out, he's working his way through that major pentatonic shape, sliding up. By the time he gets to here, he makes that transition into now that minor pentatonic shape, the blues scale. You can really hear it take a turn towards the blues at this section. And when we get into those hammer-ons and pull-offs, again back into, and here we're back into major pentatonic shapes and the extended shape in C. So we've played that shape 1 down at the bottom here. So I could go, you could play it down here if you wanted to in shape 1, but in order to play that same line on the lower strings, we have to go higher. So we go here like that. And that was a great example there of the mic setup maybe not being ideal because of the fact that you can't hear the backing vocals that are going on throughout that lead guitar solo. You might be able to just hear them faintly, but they should be a lot further forward, and that guitar solo should just be sitting on top of those vocals. But the guitar solo is really clear, which is great for us because it means we get to hear all the notes nice and clearly, and it's just testament to Scotty's technique that we can hear the notes clearly, because if we couldn't hear them clearly is because the technique is not good enough with the alternate picking, getting every single note to pop out. And every single note is popping out here because we can copy it. We can listen to exactly the notes that are being played and then replicate them. And whenever you can do that with a solo, it shows that the guy you're listening to has great technique because they're making every single note count. You can imagine that if Scotty was bumbling around with the chords here and kind of having and not playing it very well, because his guitar's so high in the mix, that's all you would hear. This is the great thing about top bands. It doesn't really matter what the mix is like. You just get to hear a great musician a little bit louder than they would normally be. And that is certainly the case here. But a great performance all round, and you just can't take your eyes off Elvis. I know that I'm pointing out things about the guitar, and hopefully you guys will be able to watch the performance and now hear the guitar that's going on in the background. But certainly anybody watching this for the first time will just be fixated on Elvis because he is just the ultimate showman at the front of the stage, the ultimate entertainer. But he was one of those guys that just gave the direction to the band, gave them all confidence. You can see they're all smiling in the background here because of the way that he's so at ease with himself, them in the band, but also with the audience. As soon as you get the audience on side, that's half the battle won. Even if you're not very good, if you're likable, people don't mind as much. It's when you've got a bit of an attitude and you maybe put the audience's backs up and then you're not very good, that's when people start to not like you. But if you're likable, they don't really mind if you're not that good. It just so happens that Elvis and the band were great, and he was great, and everyone was likable. He just really did put everybody at ease. But anyway, thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rah!